Have you ever been deep in the woods, so far from civilization that the silence itself feels like a sound? That's where our story begins, with a seasoned hunter named Silas, a man who knew the forests of the Pacific Northwest like the back of his hand. He'd spent decades tracking deer, elk, and bear, respecting the wilderness and its unwritten rules. But one crisp autumn afternoon, a single, unforgettable encounter would challenge everything he thought he knew about the world. Silas was tracking a large buck, moving silently through a dense thicket of ferns and ancient cedars. The air was still, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. He was focused, his senses on high alert. That's when he heard it. Not the snap of a twig or the rustle of leaves, but a soft, whimpering sound, like a lost animal. It was coming from a small, moss-covered hollow just off the trail. His hunter's instinct told him to be cautious. It could be a coyote pup, or maybe even a bear cub. If it was a cub, the mother would be dangerously close. Silas slowly chambered around, his heart thumping a steady rhythm against his ribs. He crept forward, peering over a fallen log into the hollow. What he saw made him freeze. It wasn't a bear cub. Curled up on a bed of moss was a small, hairy creature. It was about the size of a human toddler, covered in thick, reddish-brown fur. Its face was surprisingly human-like, with large, dark, expressive eyes that were wide with fear and pain. One of its legs was caught in a cruel, rusted bear trap, the kind that had been outlawed for years. The creature wasn't struggling. It was just lying there, whimpering softly, its chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Silas's first thought was, "What on earth is that?" It looked like a miniature version of the creature from all those blurry photos and campfire stories. A baby Sasquatch. A baby Bigfoot. Every rational part of his brain screamed that it was impossible. It had to be a deformed animal, a trick of the light. But the evidence was right there, whimpering in front of him. Compassion overrode his disbelief. He couldn't just leave it to suffer. He slowly lowered his rifle and approached the hollow, making soft, calming sounds. "Easy now," he murmured. "I'm not going to hurt you." The little creature's eyes followed his every move, a flicker of intelligence and terror in their depths. It flinched as he got closer, but didn't try to bite or lash out. Kneeling beside it, Silas examined the trap. It was old and rusty, but the jaws were clamped tight around the creature's small ankle. Getting it open would be difficult and painful. He knew he needed leverage. He looked around and found a sturdy branch, then returned to the creature. "This is going to hurt," he said gently, as much to himself as to the little being. "But we have to get this off you." As he worked the branch into the trap's spring mechanism, the creature let out a sharp cry of pain. Silas's heart ached for it. He put all his strength into prying the jaws open. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, with a loud groan of protesting metal, the rusty teeth of the trap sprang apart. Silas quickly pulled the creature's leg free. The ankle was badly injured, bleeding and already starting to swell. The little creature lay panting, its large, dark eyes now filled with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Silas knew he couldn't leave it here. It wouldn't survive on its own with such an injury. Making a decision that would change his life forever. He carefully scooped the creature into his arms. It was surprisingly light, and it trembled against his chest, but didn't resist. It was as if it understood he was trying to help. He carried it back to his remote cabin, a journey of a few miles that felt like 100. He laid the creature on a soft blanket near the warmth of his wood-burning stove. He gently cleaned the wound with antiseptic and wrapped it in clean bandages. Throughout the process, the little being just watched him with those big, knowing eyes. It was quiet now, its whimpers replaced by a watchful silence. Silas made a small bed for it in a wooden crate, lining it with more blankets. He offered it some water in a bowl, which it lapped up gratefully. He tried offering it some jerky and bread, but it just sniffed at them and turned its head away. He remembered the berries he'd foraged earlier and offered a handful. The creature's eyes lit up. It took a berry tentatively, then another, eating them with a delicate, almost human-like grace. For the next few days, Silas nursed the little one back to health. He named him Buster, a simple name for a creature that was anything but. Buster was a quick healer. Within a week, he was hobbling around the cabin, exploring every corner with a child's curiosity. He was fascinated by the ticking clock on the wall and the crackling fire in the stove. He was intelligent, too. He quickly learned to open the latch on the kitchen cupboard where Silas kept the berries. A strange and silent friendship formed between the grizzled hunter and the mysterious forest child. They spent their days in a comfortable quiet. Silas would read his books by the fire, and Buster would sit nearby, sometimes mimicking the turning of the pages with a twig. Silas found himself talking to Buster, telling him about his day, about the woods, about life. Buster would just listen, his head cocked to one side, his dark eyes seeming to understand every word. But Silas knew this couldn't last. Buster belonged in the wild. His family would be looking for him. The thought of letting him go was painful, but he knew it was the right thing to do. He decided that once Buster's leg was strong enough to run, he would take him back to the hollow where he found him. The day came sooner than he expected. Buster was now running around the cabin, his limp almost completely gone. That morning, Silas woke up to find Buster standing by the door, looking out towards the forest. A low, mournful sound coming from deep in his chest. He was ready. With a heavy heart, Silas packed a small bag of berries and opened the cabin door. They walked together back towards the dense woods, side by side. It was a silent, somber journey. When they reached the hollow, Silas knelt down. "This is it, Buster," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "This is where I have to leave you. You go find your family now." He gave the little creature a final pat on the head. Buster looked up at him, his big eyes seeming to well up with tears. He nuzzled his head against Silas's hand one last time. Then he turned and took a few steps towards the woods before pausing. He looked back at Silas, and that's when the impossible happened. In a voice that was barely a whisper, a sound like rustling leaves and a child's lisp, the creature spoke a single word. It was a word it had heard Silas say to himself 100 times over the past few weeks. It was his own name, Silas. Silas froze, the blood draining from his face. His heart felt like it stopped beating. He stared at the baby Bigfoot, his mind reeling. Had he imagined it? Did it really just speak his name? The creature looked at him for one more long moment, an expression of profound gratitude and understanding on its face, then turned and disappeared into the shadows of the ancient forest. Silas stood there for a long time, rooted to the spot, long after the creature was gone. The whisper of his name echoed in the silence of the woods, changing his world forever. He never hunted again. He spent the rest of his days as a protector of the forest, always hoping to catch another glimpse of his unlikely friend. He never told anyone the full story, knowing they wouldn't believe him. But he knew what he saw, and he knew what he heard. In the deepest, most mysterious parts of the wilderness, he had found something beyond belief, and it had whispered his name. Thanks for joining us for this incredible story. What would you have done in Silas's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. And if you love tales of mystery and wonder, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next video.